Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, the state opposition leader has pledged to place a halt on the growth of short stay accommodation and to go back to the drawing board on a new Hobart stadium. Rebecca White's budget reply also blasting the government over the cost of living and debt levels. But critics say Labor's speech lacked substance.
Up against her third premier, the opposition leader had her newest opponent and his budget in her sights.
This new premier isn't getting the basics right. This is the cost of chaos in the Liberal Party. This is the cost of weak economic leadership.
The reply speech focusing on the rising cost of living and the impact on vulnerable Tasmanians. She says spiralling rent, food and utility bills are forcing people to choose between eating, heating and medicine.
You can't go without food to cover the basics, because food is the basics. It's the bare minimum.
Labor says it would scrap the new levy on waste, calling for a rebate to be instead provided to local governments, while short-stay accommodation permits for whole houses would be paused.
This would help to put downward pressure on unfair rent increases and give Tasmanians, especially young Tasmanians, a fighting chance of breaking into the housing market.
Also calling for the final siren to be blown on a proposed $750 million floating stadium in Hobart.
The Tasmanian Task Force report never proposed a stadium for Hobart as part of the bid for an AFL team, and we divert the money to Tasmania's real priorities.
Rising debt levels also a focus.
A record debt, $5.2 billion and growing, and almost nothing to show for it.
No alternative budget, however, was provided, an issue the Premier seized on.
They've had 9 opportunities to produce an alternative budget. And what we saw then was 40 minutes of no substance.
The Treasurer equally as dismissive. Michael Ferguson slamming Labor's response for a lack of detail.
It was probably the least substantial budget reply that I've ever seen. It was barely worth Rebecca White turning up to Parliament today.
Conflicting opinions on Tasmania's financial future. John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
Meanwhile, long-awaited changes to Tasmania's electoral donation laws have finally been tabled in State Parliament. Under the proposal, disclosure thresholds would be lowered to $5,000, while foreign interests will be banned from contributing.
Our legislation is fit for our purposes here and for our culture and for our context, noting that donations above $5,000 would be on the public record for the first time.
Labor has welcomed the bill finally being tabled, but says they need heavy reform.
And we'll be drafting amendments to implement spending caps, to reduce the disclosure threshold to $1,000 and potentially other things as we work through the bill.
The laws will still be the weakest in the country, according to the Greens. And Tasmania Police has unveiled its newest weapons in the fight to reduce the state's road toll. New mobile road cameras will be rolled out later this year in marked and unmarked vehicles. Police are warning drivers they will no longer be able to hide their dangerous behaviours.
Drivers will get a ticket in the mail, and it'll be a harsh reminder to actually make sure they're doing the speed limit.
More than $9 million will be spent on the technology over the next 3 years. Tasmania has recorded another COVID-related death, bringing the death toll to 74. A man in his 80s has passed away in the state's north. The state recorded 829 new cases overnight, with more than 4,700 active cases. 48 people are in hospital with the virus, including 25 being treated specifically for it. One person is being cared for in intensive care. Children as young as 6 months will be able to be vaccinated against the flu at state-run clinics. The previous minimum age was 5 years old. The Premier says the change will ensure many Tasmanians have the opportunity to be protected against the severe impacts of the flu. There have been more than 180,000 flu vaccinations so far this year. Tasmania has escaped the worst of the cold front that's blasted and battered Australia's east coast. The clean-up is underway, millions affected by the latest weather event.
Crashing into the country with full force, rain-soaked soil is giving way to expensive collisions. This close miss just one of many widespread incidents happening in Australia's southeast.
The roots just cannot grip into the soil, and if it's a gust of wind, your top-heavy tree will just come down and rip the root system out with it.
The icy front is seeing snowstorms sweep the nation, while instances of flooding and torrential gusts also make their mark on Australian streets. Approximately 10 million people are being hit hard by the conditions as Australia's emergency services become inundated with calls. But despite the negative temperatures, some people are finding positivity in playing in the snow.
What's your favourite thing about the snow?
Snow sledding, make snow angels.
Others deeming it a day worth celebrating.
First good snow of the season, so couldn't miss it.
The Bureau has said that Tasmania has escaped the worst of the cold front, though snow fell to around 700 metres in the state's west and central areas. And Mount Wellington is due for a dusting in the coming days. Here on Ben Lomond, the mountain was painted white, while Cradle Mountain's Devilish residents also took shelter from the frost. A severe weather warning has gone out to King Island, where damaging winds rising above 100 kilometres an hour are set to kick in from midnight. The conditions won't ease off until early Wednesday morning. Brianna Boylan, 7 Tasmania News.
After 37 years, the Spirit of Tasmania will dock at Melbourne's Station Pier for the last time on October 22. After that, trips on the Spirit will be between Devonport and Geelong. TT Line's CEO Bernard Dwyer says they've been working closely with Geelong Port to ensure the new terminal is ready on time. The first sailing from Geelong will be on October 23. Hobartians with a green thumb are being encouraged to take to their nature strips. The City of Hobart is injecting $50,000 into a program with the money to be used for supporting vulnerable people and buying plants for residents.
That funding and that support will be available for people who'd like to do something interesting with their nature strips, whether that's veggies or flowers or just low maintenance natives.
The council currently mows nature strips for around a sixth of the city, but will stop doing so when the policy comes into effect next year. With winter officially kicking in tomorrow, a number of charities are launching appeals to help those doing it tough. Uniting and City Mission both calling for donations to help the homeless, saying Tasmanians are being forced to choose between going hungry or being cold.
Tomorrow marks the start of winter, and as the days get shorter and colder, those sleeping rough need our help more than ever.
As winter arrives, things get colder and a lot of people have to make the hard choice between putting food on the table and warming their house or getting warm clothing for their families.
Uniting's Tasmania Winter Appeal is in full swing, calling for locals to bring some much-needed warmth to the community's most vulnerable.
It's an opportunity for people in the community to support those who are living rough or need some additional support with donations of blankets, jackets, things to keep them warm through the winter, and of course cash donations.
Items can be dropped off at Commonwealth Bank branches across the state, with Tasmanians being urged to dig deep and donate.
People are really struggling. There's over 120,000 Tasmanians living below the poverty line. We know there's thousands of people every night sleeping on the streets, sleeping in cars.
It's just one of many appeals kicking off to help those doing it tough as we head into the cooler months. City Mission also launching their annual drive today to create awareness about the homelessness crisis. For over 50 years, the welfare group has helped thousands of Tasmanians in the north and northwest, with the initiative last year raising $180,000.
We're able to increase the amount of access, the appointments we offer, and also the average support that we provide to people is up by 25%.
Donations big and small can make a heartwarming difference this winter. McKenna Bailey, 7 Tasmania News.
Meanwhile, the state government will provide 22 spaces in Launceston, Hobart and Burnie in time for winter. The Housing Minister says this year's budget has allocated almost $7 million for the expansion. The program helps Tasmanians doing it rough with adequate shelter away from the elements. 11 beds will be allocated to Launceston, 5 to Hobart and 6 to Burnie. To some breaking news now, and Tasmanian Federal Labor MP Julie Collins has been named as part of Anthony Albanese's new ministry. She'll be taking up the portfolios of housing, homelessness and small business. Comes after the party reached the 76 seats needed to win majority government. Runners and walkers dressed in pink will take to the streets later this year, all for a good cause. The Women's 5K will see Tasmanians raising money to support those who are impacted by cancer. They're leaving from Launceston City Park.
Last year we had about 1,200 people running here from the City Park, so we're hopeful that this year we'll have the same number of people. But the event is also virtual, so right around the state there'll also be groups of people in pink running around their neighbourhoods.
This year's theme is Do It For Them, celebrating inclusivity within the community.
It's bringing a lot of people together and supporting our messages around cancer prevention. But this year, of course, our theme is all about them, because we know that everyone in Tasmania has a cancer story.
Registrations are now open, with the event to be held on September 11. Variety Tasmania is set to hold its first 5-hour Spin for Kids challenge. Teams of up to 10 will sweat it out on stationary bikes as they compete for the title of Master Spinners. Their efforts supporting local children who are sick, disadvantaged or living with a disability.
We're putting the challenge out to corporate sporting teams, to friends, families to come out, grab a bike and take the 5-hour challenge to see how many kilometres they can do.
Challenge will take place in 2 months' time, with event organisers hoping to hit a $50,000 target. In the NTFA, one club is preparing to wind back the clock this Saturday. 2 Georgetown premiership sides will gather to remember the wins that kick-started a dominant period in the club's history.
Celebrating and reminiscing the success that made their sides winners. Players from the 1982 and 2002 premiership team are gathering for a special event on Saturday at Blue Gum Park.
We celebrated pretty hard. I think we won all 3 grand finals that weekend, and yeah, it was a pretty tough game. I think it was 3 goals down halfway through the last quarter.
Tim Jones and Peter Florison were part of the 82 side. The former players keen to catch up with old mates after 40 years.
I've sort of drifted away from the club a bit, but now I'm starting to sort of come back up again to it because it's been such a big part of my life.
Meanwhile, Sean Miller and Luke Crane were part of the 02 team, which started a string of 8 premierships in a row. Crane went on to bigger things, playing for Sturt in the Sandful, where he won the league's best and fairest in 2008. Both are playing senior grade football for the Saints, bringing valuable leadership to a young group.
You just got to bring a sense of leadership, and just there's no sort of yelling and screaming at the kids and that these days, so you just got to be calm.
This year's Premier Division side is on a 5-game winning streak and is sitting 4th on the ladder, making the club one of the biggest improvers this season. And hoping some of the success watching this weekend on the sidelines rubs off.
Obviously, it's been a number of years since they've strung wins together, but for us it's just about the way each week we go about it.
Celebration will begin at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Mark Zita, 7 Tasmanian News.
In local hockey, Canterbury is inching closer to securing a berth in the finals after defeating University 4-1 over the weekend. The result was its 3rd win in a row. James Sexton and Tyler McDonald both scored 2 goals each, with the side's backline being credited for the improvement in form.
We've definitely been probably the premier defence in the season so far. So yeah, we're just working on that and working on taking our opportunities when they come in.
Meanwhile, in the women's competition, at University's finals chances took a hit after a 1-1 draw with Canterbury.
We've got a pretty young side and we haven't played together for a very long time, so I think that we're just still working on clicking together as a group.
University will host Derwent this weekend, while Canterbury face OHA.
Good evening. As expected, a chilly day today. Hobart 10 degrees, Launceston and Burnie 11, Devonport, Lowhead and Flinders Island, our high with 13. Temperatures between 2 and 8 below average. The overnight low -3 at Butler's Gorge, King Island and Smithton 12 today. St Helens 11, Strawn 10, Grove and Bushy Park made it to 8, and Lyawini a low of -2 and a top of +2. A cloud band is over Tasmania with a cold pool of air just over our northwest, with more to come our way. Cloud extends across across the nation from Western Australia as a frontal band extends back over Tasmania, spiralling into a low. Tomorrow, a strong southerly flow continues over the state as a high over the Bight sneaks in amongst all the low pressure cells. West to southwesterly winds over the north at 40 knots early, south-southwesterlies generally though up to 20 to 30 knots over the east, swells to 4 metres in the west. We have a severe weather warning for damaging winds for King Island and parts of the northwest coast. A gale warning from Sandy Cape to St Helens Point, a strong wind warning for most other coastal waters. And a bushwalkers alert for the Western and Central Plateau districts. So inclement weather still with us. Hobart showery and 12, 11 the top for Geeveston. Bothwell showers easing, 1 overnight, a top of 10 tomorrow. 40% chance of a shower in Launceston, 14 the maximum, 15 for Devonport, morning shower for Cressy and 12. Burnie, a high tomorrow of 13 and partly cloudy, showery for Strawn, 13 as well, and 13 for Curry on King Island. Showers easing from St Helens, 13 the top for Swansea, showery for Orford and 12 the maximum. On Thursday, light showers over the west and far south and later over the north coast. Cloudy for Hobart and the lower east coast with a few showers over other districts on Friday. And on Saturday, showers across the state more frequent over the north and west, more snow on the peaks. Partly cloudy and 20 in Perth tomorrow, cloudy in Adelaide, a windy showery day tomorrow in Melbourne, just 8 degrees forecast for Canberra and rain and 14 for Alice Springs. Temperature 7 degrees in our cities at the moment and cloudy all over. And Kim, I thought I'd wear a summery tie as we embark on the long, cold winter ahead of us, unless we're like you and spend most of it in a northern climate.
I do not, but I've got a good heat pump. Thanks, Merv. Well, that wraps up tonight's bulletin. Thanks for joining us this evening. Good night.